The generation of remakes and remasters continues with Gears of War Ultimate Edition for Xbox One. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Reiner. This is Game Informer's Test Chamber. Playing the game today is going to be Matt Miller.
Hey, hey.
You're also writing the review for us.
I am.
And you finished the game yesterday co-op, I saw. You were getting down to the rap at the end of the game.
Oh, man. That's something to look forward to if you have not heard the song that plays during the credit sequence of this game. It is something else.
So I got to point out, just right there, looking at the light on his shoulder, that looks very nice, Miller.
Yeah, this game has been beautifully remastered from a visual perspective. They've really gone back and redone all the characters, the lighting, the textures on the walls and on objects, on the weapons, on the armor. All of it's pretty much just been refit, which is interesting because there is not much that's been done in terms of changing the gameplay. This is a relatively faithful reproduction of the gameplay experience of the original Gears of War.
Yeah, presentation-wise, 1080p, 7.1 surround sound.
Let's take the guards' quarters.
Did you go combat or did you go training?
I did training because I kind of want to show off a little bit. I suspect there's some people out there who have never played the original Gears of War before, or even played any of the Gears of War games, and that's, I think, part of the reason they are doing this. They've got a new Gears of War game coming out next year, and I think they want to get a new audience of people who maybe never had exposure, a chance to see things from the beginning.
And this game was originally developed by Epic Games.
Yeah.
The remaster is done by the new team, Coalition, right?
That's right. And there's a significant crossover there, the most significant being Rod Ferguson, who basically runs the Coalition, and he's been a very important part of the Gears franchise at Epic. He moved over specifically to work on Gears at a new developer.
And he also worked on Bloodwake at Microsoft. I just got to throw that in there.
There you go.
We did a replay with him on the site. You should check it out. It's pretty fun. All right. And it's not just a single-player game. There is an extensive multiplayer offering, and you can play it co-op, too. Two-player co-op.
Yeah, the later games did have 4-player co-op, if you guys remember that, but in the first game there was still only 2. It was focused primarily on introducing the 2 characters, Marcus Phoenix and Dom, and but you meet the characters who are later going to be your 4-player partners.
And they have 60 frames per second for multiplayer, skill-based matchmaking, dedicated servers, and new match types.
Yeah. The multiplayer is the one aspect of the game that I haven't had a chance to dig into yet, but I'm excited to because of all of those additions. You have all the maps that were...
There's 19 maps?
Yeah,
17 maps, sorry.
Crazy, 17 maps, right? We're going to have to do a little running here. The idea is definitely get out of my way, Dom.
No, the horror of war.
The horror of war. Yeah, they've basically taken all of the stuff that came out in any version of Gears of War, of the original Gears of War, and put it in here. So you have the maps from the original game, the PC game, any DLC maps, all that stuff.
Let's just talk about what was going on in that room there with the hanging corpses.
Well,
what was that about?
I think those guys were just resting is what was going on.
Okay. That is the most random room in this game.
It is. What's funny about this game is that at the time, I think they were still kind of trying to figure out what they wanted it to be. There was always a little bit of a crisis of identity about Gears of War. Is it a horror game? Is it totally an action game? Is it sort of tongue-in-cheek with its kind of crazy characters, or is it serious? In the later games, you had these moments that were really dark, bleak moments for some of the characters. And I feel like they were always kind of struggling, and they were especially in this first game trying to figure that out. And you had those moments, like the dudes hanging, where it was like, is this a jump scare? Is it meant to be a jump scare? I don't know.
And if you did play through it originally on Xbox 360, there's a bunch of new content in here that was in the PC version of the game.
Yeah.
They're saying it's about 90 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. When this game first came out, it was one of the. I mean, I think it got a lot of criticism for being too short as a campaign, and a lot of people in later years had campaigns that were just as short. I mean, this was a herald of things to come about how hard it was to do a big HD campaign and have a bunch of set-piece moments. But regardless, when they did the PC version, they added a bunch of new stuff, and that's now in here. So if you only ever played it on Xbox, you can look forward to some new stuff, some new levels that you haven't played before, including an actual fight against a Brumac.
Those are those big titans, slumbering beasts.
Yeah.
I can't remember the developer that helped out with those moments. I know it wasn't Epic that made those. Might have been Red Fly.
Well, it's all in here. The multiplayer stuff is something that looks really cool. And the game itself is no slouch. I mean, the actual gameplay that remains from the original release is really neat. That each of the chapters kind of has its own tone to it and interesting things happening. There's a section where you're having to move through the darkness between different areas of light so that you don't get killed. There's another section where you're going to this sort of abandoned factory that's pretty neat. At the end of the game, there's a really pretty cool sequence aboard a train, aboard a moving train, which at the time, you remember how cool that was?
It still looks fun.
Yeah, and you can see, these cinematics, they look good. I mean, when the game originally released, I think we could say that Gears of War was maybe one of the best looking games ever released. And I don't know that this represents that. Right? This new release in 2015 is maybe not the best looking game you've ever seen, but it is a fine looking game.
Yeah, it holds up very well. Or, the polish they put on it is very nice.
Yeah, and
gameplay wise though, AI.
Yeah, AI is maybe one of my biggest complaints. Both ally and enemy AI kind of just is running all over the place like chickens with their heads cut off. And that does not make me super happy. It certainly helped a little bit if you switch over and you're playing on co-op, because then at least your main ally on the field is not being an idiot. Or at least, I guess that depends a little bit about who you're playing with. But you can play split screen co-op, 2-player, or you can play online, which is pretty neat. And yeah, I mean, I think that other than AI, the other gameplay stuff that feels a little bit dated, there's aspects of the way that the enemies pop in and out of cover that can be a little bit dicey, I think. And some of the actual shooting mechanics compared to more recent shooters feels a little stiff, maybe.
But the reload is still awesome.
The reload is awesome. A feature that I've always been curious that more people have not copied.
Yeah, I think there's been a couple games and that's it.
Yeah, because it's great. It takes something that is normally a boring part of games and makes it a little kind of mini game, right? Something that's kind of fun.
And you'll see it as Miller's playing. You got to hit the white, it's a swinging meter, and you got to kind of like a golf game. You got to hit it in the middle, the sweet spot, to have an active reload.
It's like a risk reward thing, right?
Yeah, otherwise he'll struggle in getting the clip in or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they took some cues from, they learned as the series went on, Gears of War 3, there's some stuff from that in the multiplayer, correct?
Right. Yeah, they took a popular mode, and I don't know that it's the exact mode. I haven't played the multiplayer yet, but they've said that it's modeled after the Gears of War 3 style mode and added that in, and they've added in a couple of other game types as well. There's Team Deathmatch. King of the Hill is the one that's the Gears of War 3 style. And then there's this new sort of 2v2 Nasher execution style, which, if nothing else, offers a few more options for people who want to engage with this multiplayer thing that feels very different, really, from any of the multiplayer stuff that is out there. That it's kind of this cover-based, focused experience. You're doing curb stomps and stuff like that. It's different from your classic first-person shooter thing. That's the common way that you play online multiplayer.
And we'll have to read your review for you to weigh in on how that holds up or how it plays this year. But it is bargain priced, not bargain priced, but it is lower priced. It's $39.
Which
it
I
might
think
be
is
different
wise.
at different retails. We'll see.
Yeah.
But you also get access to. You don't just get this game. You get the first 4 games.
Yeah, it's
You
kind
get
of
Gears
crazy,
2,
right?
Gears 3, and Gears Judgment through backwards compatibility. The new feature that Microsoft added to Xbox One. But that isn't like if you get this game next year, you won't have access. It's only you get your tokens or whatever for backwards compatibility through December 31st. From the game's launch next week on August 25th through August 31st.
Yeah,
So that's a pretty cool deal. Like you get the whole thing. So after you play this, you can just roll right into 2 and then
it
3.
won't look quite as good.
Yeah, into 3. Yeah, they are going to be the 360 versions.
But yeah, I think that's a smart move on Microsoft's part in general. I think that leveraging that new kind of backwards compatibility focus is something that they can do to just offer added value for a game like this.
I wonder if that means no remasters for 2, 3, and Judgment, if they're just going to end it there.
Well,
It kind of implies that by giving you access to the backwards compatibility ones, but that could be them just hyping up their new feature too.
you also have to figure that unless the studio is a lot bigger than I think it is, I mean, you got to figure most of their force at this point is turned over towards working on Gears of War 4.
Right.
Which we really don't know almost anything about. That trailer that we saw at E3 was kind of neat, but
Yeah, new enemies.
But it didn't talk a lot about like when or where the story is set. I mean, the end of Gears of War 3, not to spoil things or anything, but it pretty well finishes out the story
Right.
about, these guys, Marcus Phoenix and his buddies, dealing with the Locust Horde threat.
Oh yeah, the way it ends is like you can't really continue that.
Yeah,
with the same threat. That's for sure.
And they already kind of went to the prequel well with Gears of War Judgment. So,
And it did end kind of like Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Now that I remember it.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
So anyway, I think it's pretty cool. In addition to the new
Nice.
getting the games back, you are also getting, I think, beta access.
Yeah,
with
early
this.
beta access to the Gears of War 4 beta, which we don't know when it's coming yet, but that'll be pretty cool once that's up and running to see kind of what their new vision for Gears multiplayer is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go up and see what happens when I try to chainsaw a guy. This is either going to end in spectacular death or something awesome.
Yeah! So that's Game Informer's Test Chamber, everyone. Again, this game is out next Tuesday for Xbox One. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in another episode.